Om Vishwandarpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyan Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivod Bhutan Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Nama Idam Shri Dakshina Murtaye नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं दन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवतं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठं अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ I welcome you all to the 46th class of the Fundamentals of Vedanta series. We will start with the Mangala Shloka. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Bhidhiyate. Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. Tattva Bodha gave out the essence of Vedanta in this Sutra Vakyam, that you are the Ātmā, that is a higher order of reality. This is the key, that Ātmā belongs to a higher order of reality. This knowledge we cannot get from any other source except the Shabda Pramana of Vedanta. That you are the Ātmā, that is Satyam. You belong to a higher order of reality. Tadanyat sarvam mithyeti. Everything else, this entire Jagat, belongs to a lower order of reality. It is mithya. Therefore, this means, as we saw, mithya can never affect satyam. And therefore, whatever happens in this jagat, it cannot touch me, the Atma. Whatever happens to the bangle cannot touch the gold. Whatever happens, mirage water can never wet the sand. The dream can never affect the waker. Why? Because they all belong to a lower order of reality. Similarly, whatever happens within this body-mind complex or in this world, it cannot touch me, the Satyam Atma. This understanding itself is moksha. There is no other moksha. Because I become liberated from all of this apurnatvam that can be caused due to ignorance of taking the mithya vastu to be the reality. When the mithya vastu is seen as mithya and the Atma is seen as satyam, then I become free of all the apurnatvam. In fact, it is not the right language to say I become free of all the apurnatvam. I was always free of all this apurnatvam. But due to ignorance, I thought that I am affected by all of this. So this is the final message of Vedanta. This is the understanding that I have to come to. I cannot come to this understanding no matter whatever else I do. One may sit in meditation for hours and hours, days, years, but one cannot get this jnanam through any other source except through Shravanam of the Shabda Pramana of Vedanta. This is why we are saying that there are certain types of knowledge that can be only gained through the Shabda Pramana. No other Pramana works. But when I hear this, my mind is not able to assimilate this. My mind rejects this. Because I say, I am puny, I am affected by everything. I am this body and mind. Vedanta points out, because you have still not clearly understood what the Atma is, you have mixed up Atma and Anātma. And because you have mixed up Atma and Anātma in your understanding of who you are, therefore you are saying you are affected by all of this. The Shishya says, then you yourself tell me clearly what the Atma is. स्थूल सूक्ष्म कारण शरीराद व्यतिरिक्तः पंचकोशातीतः सन् अवस्थात्रय साक्षी सच्चिदानंद स्वरूप सन्यस्तिष्ठति स आत्मा. We saw that there were 11 negations in this. Confusion necessitates negation, and therefore the 11 anatmas that I tend to mix the Atma up with, those are negated. We saw the Shariratrayam. स्थूल शरीरम किम सूक्ष्म शरीरम किम कारण शरीरम किम. We saw the अवस्थात्रयम. जाग्रत स्वप्न सुषुप्ति अवस्थाः. We saw the kosha panchakam. Annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya and anandamaya. This is what we were looking at in the last class. We said that the panchakoshas are not some entirely new anatmas. The anatmas, there are a set of anatmas that constitute the individual. One classification of the anatmas that constitute the individual is called Shariratrayam. Another classification of the Atmas, the same Anātmas that constitute the individual, is called Kosha Panchakam. So we looked into the meaning of the word Kosha. Said Kosha literally means a cover or a case. So how do these koshas cover the Atma? We said, really speaking, mithya cannot cover the satyam. The pot cannot cover the clay, the wave cannot cover the water, the bangle cannot cover the gold. Because when I'm looking at each of these, when I'm looking at the bangle, when I'm looking at the clay, when I'm looking at the wave, I'm actually looking at the substance, that the content of it. So the content cannot be covered by the name and form. But if I get too captivated by the name and form, if I get enamored by the name and form, if I get taken for a ride by the name and form, then I can miss the content. And in that manner, the name and form can seemingly cover the content, cover the satyam. Mithya can as though cover the satyam, and that is why it is called a cover. Because there are these 5 layers of my personality: Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. And when I mix up the Atma with these layers, when I take these layers of the personality to be integral to Atma, when I take the attributes of the layers of this personality to be the attributes of the Atma, then I have missed the real nature of the Atma. In that sense, these layers can cover the Atma, and that is why they are called koshas. We saw Annarasenaiva Bhutva, Annarasenaiva Vriddhim Prapya, Annarupa Prithivyam Yat Viliyate, Sah Annamayaha. So this Sthula Shariram, it is formed initially due to the food eaten by the parents. And it grows in the mother's womb, again due to food eaten by the mother. Annam, Annarasam is what brings this into being, this body. It is what makes up this body. And once the child is born, then it continues to consume the Annarasam, and Annarasaineva Vriddhim Prapya. It grows and grows. And then this is sustained by Annam. If one stops taking in Annam, the body perishes. And Annarupa Prithivyam eva viliyate. And it goes back when it dies. It goes back to this Annarupa Prithivi, which is the source of all Annam. And it becomes fertilizer for the next Annam that comes out of the Prithvi. So when does Annamaya become the kosha? When I say, I am 5 feet 8 inches tall. When I say, I am dark, I am fair. When I say, I am male, I am female. And when I say this, there is a certain understanding that this is the reality about me. Then this Annamaya has become a kosha because it has covered the real nature of the Atma, that Atma is free of all these attributes. Then we come to the next layer of my personality, the Pranamaya. And as we said, the Sukshma Sharira itself is divided further into these 3 koshas: the Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya. The Pranamaya is the apparatus for the expression of my Kriya Shakti, this power to act. The Manomaya is the apparatus for the expression of my Ichha Shakti, the power to desire. And the Vijnanamaya is the apparatus for the expression of my Jnana Shakti, the power to know. The Manomaya is the seat of emotions and desires. Pranamaya is the collection of the Pancha Pranas and the Karmendriyas. Vijnanamaya is a collection of the Buddhi and the Jnanendriyas. Manomaya is a collection of the Manaha and the Jnanendriyas. So Pranamaya is for expression of Kriya Shakti. The pranas convert the food into energy, and the energy is dispensed in the operation of my karmendriyas. That is why they are bundled together into one kosha called pranamaya kosha. And when does pranamaya become a kosha? When I say, I am tired, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am healthy, I am sick. And in this, when I give a certain reality that is what is really me, I am affected by all of this. Then the pranamaya has covered the real nature of the Atma. The Atma and Anātma have again been mixed up. and pranamaya becomes a kosha. Then we come to the next subtler layer of my personality, the manomaya, combination of the manaha and the jnanendriyas. It is the seat of emotions and desires. And when does manomaya become a kosha? When I say that I am afraid, I am agitated, I am calm, I am desirous of such and such a thing, then the attributes of the manomaya have been superimposed upon the Atma and given a certain reality. The Atma and Anātma have been mixed up, have lost sight of what the Atma really is. Then manomaya becomes a kosha. Then the vijnanamaya, combination of the buddhi and the pancha jnanendriyas. It is the seat of all decision making, of gaining knowledge, certainty. Nischayatmika buddhi. When does vijnanamaya become a kosha? When I say, I have made up my mind, I have decided this. Or when I say, I did this, I did not do this, I am guilty that I did this, I am guilty that I did not do this. And all of this implies a certain judgment, about myself, a certain conclusion about myself. That I am this doer, I am this decision maker, I am the knower. So in all of this, again, Atma and Anātma have been mixed up. The real nature of the Atma is covered. I have lost sight of what the Atma really is. As we said, it's not just a matter of language. A jnani may use the same language. But understanding that the language is for transactional purposes, that is not the real nature of me. When this clear understanding is there, then these koshas are not really koshas. They don't cover the Atma. Then we come to the fifth kosha, the Anandamaya. Karana Sharira Bhuta Vidyastha Malina Sattvam Priyadi Vrittis Sahitam Anandamaya. So as we studied, the Karana Sharira is of the nature of avidya, of the nature of ignorance. Satswarupa Jnanam. It's of the nature of self-ignorance. And as we saw, in deep sleep state, the tamoguna overcomes the rajoguna completely, and therefore there is no activity at all, because all activity is driven by this rajoguna. And then tamoguna almost overcomes the sattva-guna, because there is total ignorance. Aham kimapi na janami. I don't know anything. This is my experience in deep sleep state. I know that I don't know anything. I know the blankness. So Sattva Guna is not entirely overcome. Because this knowledge is there, this much knowledge is there that I don't know anything. So this is the Malina Sattvam. And in this state, when I don't know anything, I don't know the limitations of my individuality also, I am not aware of any of my problems also. So in this quiet state of mind, the Atmananda is reflected in the Karana Sharira. This results in an experiential happiness. So the experiential happiness is the Anandamaya Kosha. In deep sleep, there are no degrees of experience. There is this Experiential happiness that cannot be classified into degrees. It is uniform. Whereas when I wake up or when I'm dreaming, again I may experience some happiness. But that happiness has got degrees. I am happy, I am happier, I am happiest. This is called Priya, Moda, and Pramoda. Ishta, Darshanajam, Priya. Priya is results from seeing an object of my liking. Moda results from acquiring the object of my liking. There is happier. I am happier. And pramoda results from experiencing the object of my liking. In that case, I am the happiest. Degrees of happiness. This again is the Anandamaya Kosha. Experiential happiness in deep sleep. And these degrees of experiential happiness experienced in waking and dream, this is the Anandamaya Kosha. And when does it become a kosha? When I say, I am happy now. And I have to somehow retain this happiness, try to retain this happiness. So sometimes in meditation, one may experience a certain happiness. Why? Because the mind has reached a quietude. And in that case, when one experiences some happiness, any experiential happiness, even in meditation, it is Anandamaya Kosha only. It is Anandamaya. But then, if I feel like retaining that experiential happiness with an understanding that I am going to lose it, in that there is a misunderstanding of the Atma, that the nature of the Atma is happiness. This has not been understood. So such a situation is like the sugar trying to retain its sweetness, not knowing that sweetness and sugar can never be separated. Or fire trying to retain its heat, forgetting that heat is actually its nature. The fire can never lose its heat. It's impossible. So similarly, Atma and Ananda can never be separated because Atma is Ananda, Satchidananda Swarupasan Yastishtati. But not knowing this, one tries to hold on to this experiential happiness. Then it becomes a kosha that covers the real nature of Atma. It is also impermanent. Experiential happiness will come and go. This is how Anandamaya becomes a kosha. So with this, Tattva Bodha concluded the discussion on all the Anātmas. 11 Anātmas were discussed. As we saw, these are not 11 Anātmas that can be counted separately. In fact, there is an overlap. Like we saw, these Panchakosha, just a reclassification of the Shariratrayam. And similarly, the Avasthatrayam is again not a set of 3 separate Anātmas. It is the states of experience that these 3 Anātmas or these 5 Anātmas, however we classify it, the states of experience that they go through. But then I tend to mix these up, and that is why Tattva Bodha has clearly said what the Anātmas are. Then we also discussed the Atma Anātma Vivekaha. Because the Anātmas are there and I am mixing them up, I need to separately see who I really am. And for this, we had touched upon Drigdrishya Vivekaha, Panchakosha Vivekaha, Avasthatraya Vivekaha. So the whole effort of Vedanta is to try to make me see the Anātmas and as the Anātmas and bring me to the Atma. When I say bring me to the Atma, bring me to an understanding of the nature of the Atma. There is no other bringing me to the Atma, because I am already the Atma. So we saw Drik Drishya Vivekaha, Drik Drishya Udvau Padatthau Staha. In any experience, there are only these two padarthas. Drik and Drishyam, the knower and the known, the observer and the observed. And the basic fundamental principle is that the known is always separate from the knower, the observed is always separate from the observed. This is required, again, in order to avoid this mix-up. Really speaking, it is not quite right to say that Satyam is different from Mithya. We have to say this when Satyam has been mixed up with Mithya. Really speaking, there is no Mithya other than Satyam. It is impossible for Mithya to exist without Satyam. So this is a stage in the inquiry where I first separately see what the Atma is, and finally I am told that the Atma is Satyam, that pervades all of this Mithya. But to come to that point, I have to first separately see what the Atma is. Therefore, Drik Drishya Vivekaha. So I am not the star. The star I can call that star or this star. I am not that star. I am not this train. I am not this house. I am not this cloth. See, anything that is known can be addressed as that or this. But the knower is never addressed as that or this. The knower is always I. The aham is always different from idam. So the two cannot be mixed up, really speaking, but still I end up mixing them up. When it comes to this body, I start saying, I am this body. So now, Drigdrishya Viveka points out that this body, also I call this body. The body is qualified by the term this, just like that star, this train, this house, this cloth, this body. So when the body falls into these things that can be addressed as this, then how can it be me, I? So all of these Sharira Trayams can be addressed as this Thula Sharira, this Sukshma Sharira, this Karana Sharira also, because the happiness is experienced. The ignorance, I don't know anything, that is also experienced. The experiencer is always different from the experienced. In fact, the ultimate knower can never be the known. The ultimate knower can never be addressed as this known. It is always the knower, never the known. So if anything is known, that is negated, saying, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. And by this process, Drigdrishya Viveka expects me to come to that I, which I can never address as this, and which can never be negated by me. There is something left out which is non-negatable, which is never addressed as this. That is the Atma. In fact, we are saying that is the Atma. Really speaking, I should be saying at that point, I am the Atma. That Atma, non-negatable, which remains after negating everything that I say is this. That is the Atma which I am. That is very important. That I am comes in there. That is the aparoksha jnana. Then we looked at the avastha traya viveka. Again, these are all different prakriyas, methods of teaching that repeatedly bring me back to who I am really. So I, the Atma, with the costume of the Sthula Shariram, become Vishwa that experiences this waking state. I, the Atma, with the costume of the Sukshma Shariram, become Taijasa that experiences the dream state. And I, the Atma, with the costume of the Karana Shariram, become Prajna, the experiencer of the blankness and the happiness in deep sleep state. So just like we saw that actor was playing the three different roles in three different costumes, the actor is always separate from the costume and the role. Similarly, the Atma that is playing these three different roles of Vishwa, Tejasa and Prajna is none of these Vishwa, Tejasa or Prajna, and is none of these costumes that it wears to become Vishwa, Tejasa and Prajna. So again, it is none of these three bodies, not the Sthula Sharira, not the Sukshma Sharira, not the Karana Sharira, and none of these three roles either. This is the avastha traya viveka. The states come and go, the states are variable, but I am the invariable presence that is there in all the three states. And then we come to the Panchakosha Viveka. We saw the Arundhati Darshana Nyaya. In order to point out something subtle in the sky, a very subtle object in the sky, we have to take support of the grosser objects and then go towards the subtle object. So the newlywed bride and groom, they are shown the Arundhati star. So Vasishtha and Arundhati are considered to be an ideal couple. But this Arundhati star is very faint. Therefore, it cannot be immediately pointed out. Therefore, somebody tells, do you see the moon? Yes. Then next to the moon, slightly above the moon, do you see that bright star? Yes. Then next to the bright star, do you see that fainter star, which is less faint as compared to this brighter star? Yes. Then next to it, do you see this very, very faint star that is twinkling? You almost would miss it if I had not told you all this. Yes, that is the Arundhati. Similarly, because our vision is tuned to the gross things, one cannot immediately appreciate the subtle Atma. And therefore, one is taken step by step. In Dridrishya Viveka, there is a jump from the known to the knower. But in Panchakosha Viveka, there are steps. Step by step, one arrives at the Atma. The Annamaya is initially taken to be the Atma because, yes, that is where you are right now. Okay, Annamaya is the Atma. But then it's pointed out that Annamaya is not the Atma. You come to the Pranamaya, take Pranamaya to be the Atma. And then he says, no, now Annamaya has become Anātma. Make Pranamaya also Anātma. You come to the Manomaya. Manomaya is the Atma. Then Manomaya becomes Anātma, Vijnanamaya becomes Atma, then Vijnanamaya becomes Anātma, Anandamaya becomes Atma. And then it points out that even this blankness and experiential happiness that you are experiencing, you are not that, you are the experiencer of it. That is the Atma. So through various prakriyas, Vedanta tries to bring me to this Atma, and my job is that I have to dwell upon this. There has to be this churning that has to take place in my own mind. I have to do this vichara, drigdrishya vichara, drigdrishya viveka vichara, avasthatraya vichara, panchakosha viveka. All of this I have to do. Here, Tattva Bodha points out a slightly different approach. It is similar to the Drigdrishi Viveka, but not quite the same. And we will read that portion. Right? It should be on page 10 of the PDF that I had sent. It starts with Madiyam Shariram. We will read that portion. Madiyam Shariram.
Madiyam Shariram.
Madiyaha Pranaha.
Madiyaha Pranaha.
Madiyam Manascha.
Madiyam Manascha.
Madiya Buddhihi.
Madiya Buddhihi.
Madiyam Ajnanamiti.
Madiyam Ajnanamiti.
Svenaiva Jnayate.
Svenaiva Jnayate.
Tadyatha Madiyatvena Jnatam.
Tadyatha Madiyatvena Jnatam.
Kataka Kundala Grihadikam Swasmat Bhinnam.
Kataka Kundala Grihadikam Swasma Bhinnam.
Tatha Panchakoshadikam Swasmat Bhinnam.
Tatha Panchakoshadikam Swasmat Bhinnam.
Madiyatvena Jnatam Ātmā na bhavati.
Madiyatvena Jnatam Ātmā na bhavati.
Here, Tattva Bodha is presenting a viveka which points out that what I call mine is different from me. So Madiya means mine. So the logic is that whatever we possess and we use, I call it mine. And whatever I claim as mine, it belongs to me. And what belongs to me is not me. So I am the possessor, never the possessed. This is the idea that is presented here. So if we take a house, then the house is something I possess and use. So I say the house is mine. The house belongs to me. When something belongs to me, it is not me. It is very obvious. Similarly, I have a pen. The pen is something I possess and use. The pen belongs to me, and therefore the pen is not me. It is something I use. And Swamiji gives this example, which he says should make it very clear if it is not clear. He says, I have a donkey, and the donkey belongs to me. So I better understand the donkey is not me. And if I have confusion in that, then it really means that I am a donkey. So this is a logic that Tattva Bodha presents here. So whatever I claim to be mine, I am not that. That's why it says, Tadyatha Madiyatvena Jnatam Kataka Kundala Grihadikam Swasmat Bhinnam. So Kataka means a bangle. Kundala means earrings. And griha means house, a house. So all of these I call as mine, my bangle, my earring, my house. So they are all madiyatvena jnatam, meaning they are known as mine, in the form of mine. And when they are known in that form, they are swasmat bhinnam, meaning they are separate from me. So similarly, I use the expression my body, madiyam shariram. My body is not well. I go to a doctor and tell him, my body is not well. Or I say, my body is hurt. My body pains. So in all of this, I know the body is mine. I have this understanding, this body is mine. Therefore, the body belongs to me. Therefore, the body is separate from me. Then I come to the pranas, madiyaha pranaha. Again, I use expressions like my digestion is weak, my circulation is not good, my breath is agitated. So, in all of this, again, understanding these are all mine. What is referred to is mine, belongs to me, therefore, it is not me. And we come to the manaha. My mind is calm, my mind is agitated. Again, I am talking about something that belongs to me. Madiyaha, madiyam manaha. Therefore, it is not me. Swasmat bhinnam. Madiya buddhihi. Says Madiya because it's Strilingam. Madiya buddhihi. I say, I have made up my mind. When I have made a decision, I say, I have made up my mind. At that point, my mind is the buddhi. Again, Madiya buddhihi, my buddhi. Possessed by me. So I am the possessor, not the possessed. For different from me. And Madiyam Ajnanam. I say I went to Japan, but because of my ignorance of Japanese, I couldn't communicate with them. So the ignorance also I say is my Madiyam Ajnanam. Therefore, it belongs to me, separate from me, different from me. So all of these I address as mine. Tatha madiyatvena jnatam panchakoshadikam swasmat bhinnam Ātmā na bhavati. So all of these panchakoshas, shariratrayas, avastatraya, everything is addressed as mine. And since it's called mine, all of those understanding, my understanding is they belong to me. And clearly, if something belongs to me, it is not me. I am the possessor, not the possessed. So this is the understanding presented here. So now the student asks that you have negated everything. You have said all of these 11 Anātma addressed as mine. Therefore you have negated everything. What is left? Ātmā tarhi ka. You read that portion. Ātmā tarhi kaha.
Atma tarhi kaha.
Satchidananda swarupaha.
Satchidananda swarupaha.
Sat kim
Sat
kalatrayepi tishtati iti sat.
Sat kim kalatrepi tishtati iti sat.
Chit kim jnanaswarupaha.
Chit kim jnanaswarupaha.
Anandah kaha. Sukhaswarupaha.
Anandah kaha. सुखस्वरूपः
एवं सच्चिदानन्दस्वरूपं स्वात्मानं विजानीयात्
एवं सच्चिदानन्दस्वरूपं स्वात्मानं विजानीयात्.
So this is a very important portion of Tattva Bodha. In fact, all the prior portions are really preparatory for this portion. The student asks, then what is Atma? You have negated everything that I am calling mine. You have negated all the Anātmas as not being Atma. Then what is it that remains? What is it that you're calling the Atma? Atma tarhi kaha. So the Guru replies, Satchidananda Swarupaha, that Atma is of the nature of Sat, Chit and Anandaha. And these are extremely important words to understand in the Vedantic teaching. So we will start with Chit. In fact, we have dwelt upon Sat extensively. Effectively, it means Satyam. And we have looked at Satyam and Mithya extensively. We will revise that in the upcoming classes, but we will start with Chit. So here, Guru has said Atma is Satchidananda Swarupaha, and therefore the student is asking what each of these words mean. So Sat Kim, Kalatrayepi Tishtati iti Sat, Chit Kim, Jnana Swarupaha. So what is Chit? Jnana Swarupaha. So Chit means of the nature of consciousness, jnana swarupaha, of the nature of consciousness. That Atma, being the nature of consciousness, is what makes this body, mind, etc. sentient. I say I am conscious. I am a conscious being. So what is the origin? What is the source of this consciousness? That is the Atma. So this is a profound topic. Therefore, we will first independently dwell upon this topic and then we will reconnect with what Tattva Bodha has said. So here there are 3 points that we can take home from this discussion in Tattva Bodha. The first point is that all of these Sharira Trayam or these Kosha Panchakam, all of them are material in nature. They are all matter. They are all products of the 5 elements. As we have seen, Sthula Sharira, Panchikrita, Panchamahabhutaih Kritam. It is made of the grossified version of the 5 elements. It is matter. Then you come to the Sukshma Sharira, Apanchikrita Panchamahabhutaih Kritam. It is made of the subtle 5 elements. So it is subtle matter, a very subtle form of matter, but it is still matter. Then we came to the Karana Shariram. He said, Sharira Dvayasya Karana Matram. That this Karana Shariram is the cause of these 2 bodies. And we discussed about the cause being unmanifest. Just as the entire movie is unmanifest in the CD, the entire dream is unmanifest in the mind. Just as the entire tree is unmanifest in the seed. So this Karana Shariram is unmanifest, but it is unmanifest matter. It is also matter, but it's such a subtle form of matter that It is not manifest. So all of these are material. Then there is another fundamental law in Vedanta. That whatever is matter can never have sentiency. Matter can never be sentient by itself. For example, there is a wall in front of me. The wall cannot know itself, nor can the wall know anything else. This desk cannot know itself, nor can it know anything else. The Sharira Trayam, being matter, is exactly like this wall or this desk. Being matter, it cannot be sentient. You take a pot of boiling water, it has got the Panchabhutas in it. Akasha, Vayuhu, Agnihi, Jalam and Prithvi, everything is there, but it doesn't get sentiency just because you combine these elements. The elements themselves are inherently insentient. So modern science also agrees that this body is matter. That's why when there is a bone problem, they say take calcium supplements. If the hemoglobin is deficient, they say take iron supplements, take vitamin supplements. So I thought maybe, these supplements are all limited to calcium, iron, vitamins, etc. But I was surprised to see selenium supplements, magnesium supplements, and all this. They are also there. So this indicates that there is an entire periodic table is there in this body, except perhaps some elements like mercury, etc. I don't know if there is mercury in the body, but mercury is also used in some Ayurvedic medications. After some processing, it is used. Anyway, this body is matter. So now, then the question is, we are still in the first point, and we said we will extract 3 points from this entire discussion. We are still in the first point. That if this body is matter, if these three bodies are matter, then how come they are sentient? This sense of touch pervades the entire body. My mind is clearly sentient. I can know things. So how come there is this sentiency? And then, like we said, Annamaya Kosha, this food that I eat, the food, the idli doesn't know itself, nor does it know anything else. But when this idli is eaten, it becomes Annarasa, it becomes a part of this body. And the same idli, that's a part of this body now. It gains a certain sentience. How do we explain this? So we had touched upon this topic before. And at that point, we took the example of a pauper. You see a pauper who has nothing, and he is literally begging. And suddenly, a few days later, you see him traveling in a Mercedes and living in a palatial house. So, if you know for a fact that he has nothing, but if he is doing all of this, that means that all of these things are not his own, is borrowed. He has perhaps taken some huge credit. I wonder which credit card company would give him that credit. But something like that must have happened. Bottom line is it is borrowed. So similarly, these three bodies are inherently insentient, being matter, calcium, magnesium, selenium, phosphorus, sodium. How come this is becoming sentient? Only answer is it is borrowed sentiency. So here we take the example of the moon. The moon is not self-luminous. The moon appears to be brightly lit on this Purnami night. Purnami night, I experience this full moon in all its glory. I can even read a book in the moon's light. But for somebody who has studied this subject matter, they know that only stars have their own light. Only the stars are self luminous. These planets and the satellites of these planets, they don't have their own luminosity. But the moon is a satellite of the earth. Earth is not self luminous, nor is the moon. But then I experience this bright moon on Purnami night. How is this? It is borrowed luminosity. The light is not, the light is on the moon, but the light is not of the moon. It is borrowed from the sun. So similarly, we say that this Sharira Trayam is like this moon. It has no inherent consciousness being matter. But since I experience this consciousness, I experience it as sentient, the only explanation is this is borrowed sentiency. Consciousness is on these bodies, but consciousness is not of these bodies. Then the next question is, just like the moon borrows light, okay, there is a self-luminous source of the light. What is the source of this consciousness then? Who is the lender? For there to be a borrower, there must be a lender. So who is the lender of consciousness? Who is the original possessor of consciousness? Really speaking, we'll say even the possessor of consciousness is not the right term. What is that original consciousness? Is a better way to phrase it. That lends consciousness. We say that the source of this consciousness cannot be matter. Why? Because matter is inherently not consciousness. It cannot inherently have this consciousness. Because if that source again was matter, we'll have to look for another source. Therefore, we say that the source is the non-material Atma. Atma is not matter at all. So this consciousness is not something borrowed by Atma. The Sharira Trayam borrows consciousness, but Atma is not a borrower of consciousness. Consciousness is the very nature of Atma. Consciousness doesn't come and go in Atma. Consciousness is Atma. Atma is consciousness. So now a child who looks at the moon, the child would say that this moon's light is bright, this moon's light, moonlight, etc. A child uses the term and really thinks the moon is the one that is shining. But for the one who has done this sunlight vichara, this person knows that the moon is shining, that the light is on the moon, but the light is not off the moon. So from this, we can derive these 5 principles of sunlight. That sunlight is not a part, product, or property of the moon. Sunlight is not a part, product, or property of the moon. This is the first principle. The sunlight is an independent principle that pervades the moon and makes the moon bright. This is number 2. Then sunlight is not limited by the boundaries of the moon. Because the sun is there. And the sunlight is pervades that entire space around the sun. But for the sunlight to be visible, there has to be an object that reflects it. So the moon comes, it obstructs the sunlight, and therefore it reflects the sunlight, and therefore appears to shine. But the sunlight is not just on the moon, it is around the moon as well. It's just not visible there. It is unmanifest around the moon, it is manifest on the moon. So sunlight is not a part, product, or property of the moon. Sunlight is an independent principle that pervades the moon and makes it bright, and sunlight is not limited by the boundaries of the moon. And the sunlight continues to exist even if the moon goes away. The moon goes away, and in the morning, or maybe in the night also, the moon, let's say there is a moon set. Then the sunlight is still there, it's just not visible. It doesn't mean that the sunlight has gone away. And in the absence of the moon, the sunlight is not non-existent. The sunlight cannot be transacted with during the night in the absence of the moon. There is no way to interact with that sunlight. That doesn't mean the sunlight doesn't exist, it is there. So these are the 5 principles of sunlight. So similarly, we can derive these 5 principles of consciousness. Consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the 3 bodies. Consciousness is an independent principle that pervades these 3 bodies and makes them sentient. Consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of these 3 bodies. These 3 bodies may go, but consciousness continues to exist. During death, the Sthula Sharira goes, but consciousness is not affected. Why? Because it's not a part, product, or property of these bodies. The Sukshma Shariram also goes during Pralayam. Consciousness continues to exist. The Karana Sharira also goes. When? On the rise of Atma Jnanam. But consciousness continues to exist. And in the absence of these bodies, consciousness doesn't transact. Consciousness cannot be transacted with. But that doesn't mean that consciousness doesn't exist. It is just unmanifest. These are the 5 principles of consciousness. We'll look at each of these in some detail. So let's take the first one, that consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the bodies. Property of the body mind. So consciousness is not a part of the body mind. Like sunlight is not a part of the moon. Or if we take another example, electricity is not a part of the bulb or the fan. Conscious sunlight is associated with the moon, electricity is associated with the fan or the bulb. But sunlight is not a part of the moon, electricity is not a part of the bulb or the fan. The body has parts like this hair and nails and skin and all that. There is no such part called consciousness. Consciousness is not a property of the body also. Like the sunlight is not a property of the moon. There is no attribute of the moon called sunlight. Electricity is not an attribute of the fan or the light bulb. There is an association, but it is not a part, product, or property. That's not the type of association here. So similarly, height, weight, complexion, etc. are attributes of this body. But there is no attribute of this body called consciousness. And then consciousness is not a product of these bodies either. Product of this body means blood and enzymes and cells. And even the waste the body produces can be called a product of the body. But there is no product of the body called consciousness. In fact, the scientists think that consciousness is a product of these biochemical processes in the body. But Vedanta rejects that completely. It says you're completely on the wrong track. Consciousness cannot be generated by combinations of matter. So, this is the first principle. It's not a part, product, or property of the bodies. When I say bodies, I mean Shariratrayam. And consciousness is an independent principle that pervades these three bodies and enlivens the bodies. So, just as the non-luminous moon becomes luminous, becomes bright in the presence of sunlight, when it's pervaded by sunlight, or this bulb begins to glow in the presence of electricity, or this fan moves in the presence of electricity. The sunlight is an independent principle, nothing to do with the moon. Similarly, electricity is an independent principle that has nothing to do with a particular fan or a particular light, it just happens to be associated with that. So also, these inert body, mind, they all become sentient because of the pervasion, because of the presence of consciousness. But consciousness is an independent principle that pervades the body and the mind and enlivens the body and the mind. And we come to the third principle, that Atma is not, this consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the three bodies. Just like sunlight is not confined to the boundaries of the moon, electricity is not confined to the boundary of the light bulb or the fan. So consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of these three bodies. There is no height, weight, breadth, or depth for consciousness. Consciousness is boundless and limitless, dimensionless. We say that consciousness doesn't have any spatial limitation at all. In fact, space itself appears in consciousness. Consciousness can be without space. Space cannot be there without consciousness. And this consciousness continues to exist even after these bodies go. This body may go, the mind may resolve, but consciousness continues to exist because it's an independent principle. It's not a part, product, or property of these bodies. Just as even if the moon were to go, the sunlight continues to exist. Even if the bulb gets fused, you remove the bulb, or the fan motor gets burnt and you dismantle the fan, electricity continues to exist. These are just apparatus for the manifestation of electricity, for the manifestation of sunlight. The consciousness continues to exist. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. Nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. Krishna is talking about this in the Bhagavad Gita. It is never born. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. It never dies. Nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyah. Having been there, it doesn't disappear. Ajaha, it is unborn. Nityaha, it is timeless. It transcends time also. Shashvataha, unchanging. Puranaha, it is ancient but ever new. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire, even if this body is destroyed, consciousness is untouched. Independent principle. Therefore, it has no time-wise limitation also, no space-wise limitation, no temporal time-wise limitation also. And the surviving consciousness, which is there, even in the absence of these bodies, it cannot transact. Because of the absence of an apparatus, just like sunlight doesn't appear in the absence of the moon, electricity cannot transact in the absence of the light of the fan. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. Similarly, consciousness continues to exist, even in the absence of these mediums of transaction. So, this is the first point that we extracted from this discussion. That Satchidananda Swarupaha Chit Swarupa Atma. Atma is of the nature of consciousness. What is this consciousness? The five-featured consciousness. Not a part, product, or property of the body, independent principle that pervades the body, not limited by the boundaries of the bodies, continues to exist even after the bodies go. And after the bodies go, the fact that it doesn't transact doesn't mean it's non existent, it is just unmanifest. This is the first point. Then the second point is that every individual is a mixture of the Atma and Anātma. Mixture of the Atma and Anātma is what constitutes an individual. Mixture of matter and consciousness. Just like we can say that the effulgent moon is a mixture of the moon's body and the sunlight. That's what makes the moon luminous. Similarly, this conscious individual is a mixture of the Anātmas and this Atma that is an independent principle. It's a mixture of matter and spirit, a mixture of Prakriti and Purusha. These are the other words that are used, but essentially mean the same thing. Prakriti is matter, Purusha is this consciousness. A mixture of apara prakriti and para prakriti. Again, Bhagavad Gita uses these terms. Apara prakriti refers to this inert matter. Para prakriti refers to this consciousness. Or a mixture of Maya and Brahman. Maya refers to this unmanifest and manifest matter. Brahman refers to this independent, non-material, spiritual consciousness principle. So every individual is a mixture of these two. This is the second point. Now the third point is, now having studied this much, we know that we are a mixture of these two. Now what do I claim to be me? What am I? Who am I in this mixture? So I can either say I am Anātma, or I can say I am that Atma. Now, an ignorant person who hasn't done the study up to this point, hasn't done the vichara up to this point, he doesn't even know about this Atma as an independent principle. He has no choice but to identify with Anātma. That is the fundamental human problem. Everybody is moving around identifying with Anātma. And we say this identification with Anātma results in endless suffering. Anātma is changing, born, decaying, dying, comes and goes. It has these ups and downs, subject to karma. It is anitya. Anitya vastu it is. An identification with such an anitya, coming and going, changing, decaying, anatma. It is the gateway to apurnatvam. It is the gateway to samsara. It is the gateway to suffering. But understanding that I am the Atma. Atma is changeless. Ajaha, nityaha, shashvatoyam purana. Unborn, undying, undecaying, changeless, ancient but ever new. This is the key to Purnatvam. This is the key to moksha. The ignorant has no choice but to identify with Anātma. That is why we say Vedanta Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam is required. One will continue to suffer until one knows this truth about myself. So now that we are more aware, we are more informed, we have a choice. What do I identify with? Vedanta points out that when I say I am, this I refers to the consciousness principle, am refers to the existence, Sat and Chit. I refers to Chit, am refers to Sat. They are really one. So when I'm saying I am, I'm referring to the source of the consciousness and existence within me. This body, as we have seen, the Shariratrayam has no original consciousness of its own. It is thriving on borrowed consciousness. And as we have seen, it is mithya. Tadanyat sarvam mithyati. It is thriving on borrowed existence. So do I identify with this that has borrowed consciousness and borrowed existence? Am I really referring to this when I say I? When I am saying I, am I referring to this entity that has borrowed consciousness and borrowed existence? No, I am referring to the original consciousness, original existence when I say I. And that is what I should be identifying with. So the real meaning of this word I is the original consciousness, the original existence. This body, having borrowed consciousness and borrowed existence, is jadam and mithya. Is this what I want to identify with? So this borrowed consciousness is given another term in Vedanta. It's called Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa. It means a semblance of consciousness, a reflection of consciousness, not the original consciousness. When I see my face in the mirror, do I start saying that the face in the mirror is my face, is my original face? I don't say that. I call the reflection as a reflection, a copy as a copy. A Xerox copy is a Xerox copy of the original. So I identify myself with the original, not the reflection. So here too, Atma is the original consciousness. What appears in these three bodies is this Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. It is not the original. I should be claiming the original as the I. So this body and the mind are just apparatus for the purposes of transactions. Vedanta says don't get too attached to it, don't get too identified with it, because this is matter, it is subject to decay and death. It will go. And if you're too identified with this, that is suffering. So Jnani knows the nature of Anātma. Anātma will go. A Jnani also knows the nature of Atma, that I never come and go. Therefore, a Jnani has no problem even if the Anātma goes. Well, that is its nature. It is doing what it's supposed to do. Don't place your I in it. This is what Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya says in Nirvana Shatkam. Manobuddhi ahankara chittani naham न च श्रोत्र जिह्वे न च घ्राण नेत्रे न च व्योम भूमिर्न तेजो न वायुः चिदानंद रूप शिवोहम शिवोहम. I am not this manaha buddhi ahankara mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. I'm not this mind, I'm not this memory. Nacha shrotra jihve, I'm not these jnanendriyas, nacha ghrana netre. Nacha vyoma bhumirna tejo na vayuhu, I am not these five elements. If I am identifying with the Shariratrayam, I am effectively saying I am these five elements. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, I am of the nature of this consciousness. Ananda, nature of Chit and Ananda. I am all auspiciousness Shiva. Why? Because consciousness is unaffected by the coming and going of anything. There can never be inauspiciousness in Atma. So, evam Sachidananda Swarupam Swatmanam Vijaniyat. So we have not yet touched upon the Sat Swarupam and Ananda Swarupam. So we can take it as Evam Chit Swarupam Swatmanam Vijaniyat. Know yourself as this Chit Swarupa Atma. So the whole Vedantic sadhana is about where do I place my I? Where do I place this I? Do I place it in Anātma or do I place it in Atma? The entire Vedantic sadhana is about understanding and then training the mind to place this I in the Atma. With Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, I train myself to locate this I in the Atma. And just this relocation of the I itself is the key to moksha. So with this, we conclude our discussion on the Chit Swarupa, Atma, and we will continue in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Yes, Vishwanathanji.
Namaskaram again, Satyanji.
Yes.
Today, I think a wonderful topic has been beautifully explained with various examples. What is Atma and what is Anātma, and specific topic on first topic of Sachitanandam Swarupam. We discuss about detail about Chit.
Yes.
I got two clarification. If you probably would have explained, maybe I have missed out. Maybe in between some classes. Two questions here. If you can just clarify and give some clarification on that so that we can refine our thought process.
Sure.
The first question is, the consciousness is being discussed today, and how can we recognize this consciousness in our daily activities? If we can just some examples of how we recognize this consciousness, very important, which I thought I will clarify with your answer.
Yes, yes.
The second one is, we have discussed in the so far the 44th class or 45th class many relation between Brahman and Ishvara. So Brahman and Ishvara both are identical with Paramatma. I'm just getting some confusion there. If you can just clarify
Yes.
these two, it will be great. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll take the first question about how do we recognize this consciousness in our daily life.
Activity. Yes, correct.
One way to look at this, it is really impossible to miss this consciousness in our daily life. Because this I has to be present for me to do any transaction in life. This I is always present. There is never any transaction in our daily life without this I. This I is present in every transaction.
Correct.
So it is impossible to miss this I because I am the one who is transacting. That is why we say that the existence of Atma, fact that Atma exists, that I exist, I don't need any pramana for that.
Okay.
Even in the darkest of rooms, I cannot miss my own presence. Where the problem is what is the nature of this Atma? That as long as I don't understand, I will invariably identify with Anātma, saying, I am this Anātma. And then Anātma has become a kosha, it has covered the Atma. I have missed the real nature of the Atma. So the problem in my daily life is not that I don't recognize the I at all. The problem is I partially recognize this I. I have this half jnanam, so to say. The samanya jnanam is there, but the vishesha jnanam is not there. That is what causes all the subsequent confusion. That unless I know the rope for a rope, right, I will mistake it for a snake. So I know this something is there. This long and curved entity is there, but I don't know what it really is. Therefore, I end up mistaking it. Similarly, I know I am there. This general jnanam, samanya jnanam is there, but this vishesha jnanam, that Atma, is an independent principle that pervades the body mind. Atma is not a part, product, or property of the body mind. This understanding of the Atma is not there. And that is the source of all problems. Yeah. Therefore, the real spirit of your question is, see, the reason you are asking about how do I recognize Atma in my daily life is that I want to somehow, right, make progress on this journey of Vedantic understanding, right?
Correct.
The only way to make progress is to understand the Atma, that this Atma, this I, really am an independent principle. So that understanding I have to repeatedly invoke in my daily life.
Okay, means mananam, sravanam, and nididhyasanam.
Yes. So I have to increase that what happens is that when my life becomes overwhelmed with transactions, when I get too involved in transactions, right, then the actor becomes deluded to think that I am the role.
Okay.
So imagine that there is a drama where the actors have forgotten that they are all in a drama. They have taken themselves to really be the roles. That is what we are seeing everywhere in this entire world. That is what is really going on.
One thing here,
Yes.
if you look at the entire transaction, what we do in our daily life,
yes,
instead of recognizing that I am not that, means I am not the object, but always we attach ourselves to the object of possession. I do not know why this thought process is coming. Is because of mithya or the ignorance, whatever you are talking about. That is the first point. Second, the real nature is being blinded by something. I don't know why that is getting blinded. I'm not too sure.
Yes, those questions we have touched upon. You have to go back to the rope snake example.
Okay.
Why do I see the snake? That's because I have not known the rope as a rope. So
Mm,
why do I identify with Anātma? Because I have not understood the real nature of Atma.
mm,
So the only solution to many such doubts, right, is to understand the real nature of Atma. And the only way to understand is through repeated Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Therefore, as we were saying, that if transactions overwhelm
mm,
our daily life,
mm.
then the actor seriously begins to think that he is a role. That is why we say that the actor goes to the green room and then removes all the all the costumes, etc. So, like that, we have to now and then go back to the green room
Mm,
where I see myself as free of all these costumes.
right.
And that I have to repeatedly see. That's where the Mananam and Nididhyasanam comes in. That is where Vedantic meditation also has a role to play. The reason we have not talked much about meditation so far, we have not touched upon Nididhyasanam so far, is that in order to meditate, I have to know what I have to meditate on.
Correct.
See, a lot of this modern meditation that is going on, it is not really Vedantic meditation. Because we say Vedantic meditation, Nididhyasanam, can come only after this. The real Vedantic meditation comes only after the Shravanam and Mananam have been done. And one knows what is this subject matter, what is it that I have to meditate on. That has to be clear.
Okay.
So
Fantastic.
that also we will come to eventually.
Very
Once
good.
we have done the basic Shravanam, we will come to those topics.
Okay. But we can't stop our daily transaction. That we need to be clear of, because we are we are
Yes.
part of this world. When
Yes.
we do that, we need to attach or detach ourselves from these objects of this world.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
So
Right, sir.
that basically I have to repeatedly see that these costumes are the costumes. And whatever Vyavahara I am doing, I'm wearing this costume, and whatever the outcome of this Vyavahara is, it cannot fundamentally affect me.
Also, when I play these roles, I need to follow the Satyam and Dharmic principle. Am I right, sir?
Yes.
Uh,
So,
when,
so there is never a compromise on dharma. That is true.
at any point of time, I should not
Yes.
tell even unhurting lies also, without hurting. So yeah,
Yes.
lies.
And
Yeah.
and and the interesting consequence of Shravanam.
Mm,
See, if you look into why one compromises on dharma, then the root cause of that is also ajnanam. At some level, I have identified with with Anātmas, and I think that I am going to lose something unless I
mm.
compromise on dharma, right? So the idea of losing something is rooted in identification with some Anātma.
Anatma. Okay,
So the moment this teaching starts to become clearer and clearer, the rationale for dharma
will come into play.
also becomes clearer.
Very good. Excellent, sir. And the second question, sir, the Brahman and Ishwaran,
Yes.
Paramatma, we
So
always
that
relate all these three.
topic,
Yeah. Mm.
in fact, that topic is going to come in Tattva Bodha next.
Okay, okay, okay.
So
That will not
after the
talk.
Satchitananda topic is this topic. So we will defer this and there's
Okay.
some discussion there. Yes.
Why I brought this question here was, the Brahman, Ishwaran, we have talked, intertwined with, both are equal like that, we've discussed so far. Brahman, Ishwaran,
Sure.
Paramatma. So that's the reason I thought I will bring up this question here. Thank you,
Sure.
sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody,
Yes.
Balaji is asking question. Yeah.
Yes. Balaji, Prasanna. Yeah.
So here I'm seeing that there is only one consciousness, and that is pervading everything and everybody.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when it's the consciousness that is pervading me is not different from that is pervading from you.
Yes.
And so it's when I try to put my eye on the consciousness,
Yes.
it's not different from you,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
So, but at the same time, I see, like from this perspective, if I see there's no I actually, I doesn't seem to exist. Like there's only if there's only consciousness and it has no properties. nothing to identify it with,
Yes.
then when I'm trying to say, I'm trying to place I on the consciousness, I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
seeing the consciousness, because it seems to be there's a conflict, contradiction in the statements.
So what is the contradiction that you're talking about?
I'm trying to place this I in
Ah.
consciousness,
Yes, yes, yes,
which
yes.
has no
Okay.
properties. Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
yes. So one example that is often brought up, and in fact, at this point, whatever vichara we have done, we are still analyzing the individual, and we have come to this individual consciousness, so to say, the Atma, right? So that is only one half of Vedanta, so to say. We have not yet discussed Brahman. That is the Ishvara, is the second half of the discussion in Tattva Bodha. And then the two are equated. That Atma is Brahman, that equation will come. So right now we have come to this point that I am the Atma. That is not a part, product, or property of the body. That's an independent principle, etc. The Atma, when it gets equated to Brahman, is when I know that Atma is really all-pervading Brahman. They are one and the same. That discussion will also come in Tattva Bodha. But to answer your question about this, there's another example that you can think of, like the sun, which is being reflected in different buckets of water. Each bucket of water, there is a reflection, right? But the sun is one. Similarly, this Chaitanyam, this Chit, there is one Chaitanyam, which is the same as Ishvara's Chaitanyam also. We will come to that part. But basically, about this contradiction that you were pointing out, right? So I have to know, using my body and the mind, that I am not this body and the mind. Right? I have to know, using my mind, that I am not this mind, but I am this consciousness principle that pervades the mind. Right? So for that, I have to use the mind. And I have to have a language there that tells me what I am thinking, what is my understanding. That is where I'm saying that I have to locate my I in this Atma. But the Atma itself is beyond all location, really speaking. Right? So at the level of the mind, I understand it this way, that I am not the mind, but I am this consciousness that is an independent principle that pervades the body mind. This is the Atma Jnanam. Right? The Atma Jnanam has to take place in the mind only. So does that resolve the contradiction part of the question?
Yeah. Because I'm trying to connect my I with your I,
Yes.
but as long as these are limited by these bodies or these minds,
Yes.
they're different. But
Yes.
yeah, I know I understand.
So just like the sun's reflection in all of the buckets are there, right? But the sun is one. Similarly, this consciousness is only one consciousness.
So uh,
Yes.
this same question I also tried to answer for myself,
Yes.
and the like the little pseudo, like pseudoscience type of fake answer, that placebo effect sort of thing that got me was maybe like, if I think of it as I've lived, everyone's everyone is the same person, it's a different life. So in one life I was Nana, and now I'm this, and now
Yes.
one life I'm you. So it is just that this is the experience right now, but in a different life, I was someone else. So it's the same I.
Yes.
That way, I mean, even though that is not like,
Yes.
maybe the thing, okay.
Yes. Yes.
There are also
Basically,
levels.
like the actor putting on different costumes, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes, like we saw, there are double roles played by the actor, triple roles. In fact, there was a Shivaji Ganeshan movie where I think he played 8 roles in the same movie. So there is only one actor here, right? The same actor is appearing in different costumes. That's why we say Ishvara all pervading. Ishvara is appearing as everybody. So that is very consistent with the what you pointed out.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Namaskaram.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Excellent class. Hari Om.